My sister deleted my number right in front of her new boyfriend. Amanda had always been the family's golden child. Ivy League student, beautiful, perfect. I was just the older sister with the boring office job, until she met Connor Williams, heir to a billionaire Boston family. That's when she decided I wasn't classy enough to exist in her new life. But here's the thing. I'm the one who controls her $80,000 Harvard tuition account. The Thanksgiving dinner at our parents' house started like every other family gathering, Mom fussing over the turkey, Dad arguing with the TV remote, and Amanda glowing as she talked about her latest achievements. But this time was different. This time, she had Connor. "You should see his family's summer house in Martha's Vineyard," Amanda gushed, her diamond earrings catching the dining room light. She'd never owned diamond anything before Connor. "It's right on the water with its own private beach." Connor sat beside her, perfectly polished in his navy blazer and crisp white shirt. Everything about him screamed old money, from his leather loafers that probably cost more than my monthly rent to the way he held his wine glass like he was born doing it. "The Hamptons house is nice, too," he added casually, cutting his turkey with surgical precision, though Mother prefers the Nantucket property for fall gatherings. I watched our parents' faces light up like they'd won the lottery. Mom practically vibrated with excitement, and Dad kept nodding along like Connor was discussing the weather instead of multiple million-dollar properties. "Rebecca works in accounting downtown," Mom offered, trying to include me in the conversation. "She's been so supportive of Amanda's education." Connor's pale blue eyes flicked toward me briefly, taking in my Target blouse and discount store jewelry. His smile remained polite, but I caught the slight tightening around his eyes. The look rich people give when they're calculating your net worth and finding it insufficient. "How practical," he said, then immediately turned back to Amanda. "Darling, didn't you mention your literature professor wants to discuss your thesis?" Amanda's face flushed with pleasure at being called darling. She launched into a detailed explanation of her senior thesis on Victorian women's literature, her voice taking on this slightly affected tone I'd never heard before. It was like she was auditioning for a role in a period drama. Throughout dinner, I noticed little things. How Amanda kept checking her phone whenever Connor wasn't looking directly at her. How she'd carefully steered conversations away from our childhood whenever I tried to share a memory. How she'd somehow managed to turn all the family photos face down on the side table before Connor arrived. "Remember when we used to build those elaborate blanket forts?" I said during dessert, smiling at Amanda. "You'd insist on having tea parties inside them with all your stuffed animals." Amanda's fork paused halfway to her mouth. That was so long ago, Rebecca. I barely remember." But I remembered. I remembered spending my babysitting money on fancy plastic tea sets for those parties. I remembered staying up late helping her with homework when she struggled in middle school. I remembered working extra shifts at my college job to help Mom and Dad with her high school tuition when Dad lost his job. "Rebecca has always been such a wonderful big sister," Mom said warmly. "She helped us so much with Amanda's education expenses." Connor's eyebrows raised slightly. "Education expenses?" An uncomfortable silence settled over the table. Amanda's face went pale, then flushed red. "Just, the usual family support," Dad said quickly. "Nothing major." But it was major. It was $47,000 of my own money over the years, plus co-signing $33,000 in student loans. It was sacrificing my own dreams of graduate school so Amanda could have hers. It was working 2 jobs through my 20s while she focused on her studies. After dinner, while Mom and Dad cleaned up, I found Amanda and Connor on the back porch. They were standing close together, his arm around her waist, both of them looking out at our parents' modest backyard like they were surveying an estate. "Your family seems lovely," Connor was saying, his voice carrying that tone wealthy people use when they're being politely condescending. "Very grounded." "They are," Amanda replied, but there was something strained in her voice. "Sometimes I think they don't really understand the opportunities I have now, like they're stuck in this small-town mindset." "Small-town mindset? We lived in suburbia 20 minutes from downtown. Amanda had grown up in the same middle-class neighborhood as me, went to the same public high school, shopped at the same mall. It's understandable, Connor said. Not everyone can appreciate the finer things. It takes a certain refinement. Amanda nodded eagerly. Exactly. I mean, I love them, but sometimes I feel like I've outgrown this place, you know? I stepped back inside before they could see me, my chest tight with something I couldn't name yet. It felt like watching someone I loved slowly disappearing, replacing herself with a stranger wearing her face. The next few weeks brought subtle changes that grew less subtle by the day. Amanda, who used to call me every few days just to chat, suddenly became perpetually busy. When I did manage to reach her, our conversations felt stilted, like she was reading from a script. "How are classes going?" I'd ask. "Fine. Busy. You know how it is." "Want to grab lunch this weekend?" "Can't. Connor and I have plans." "What about next weekend?" "I'll have to check and get back to you." She never got back to me. Her social media told a different story. Instagram posts of her and Connor at expensive restaurants, art galleries, charity galas. Photos of her in designer dresses I knew she couldn't afford, at events in Boston I'd never heard of. And in every single photo, she looked like she belonged there, like she'd been born into that world instead of ours. The really painful part was how carefully I'd been cropped out of her life story. Photos from our family vacations disappeared from her feed. The picture of us at her Harvard graduation, where she'd thanked me in her speech for making this possible, vanished. Even the silly selfies we'd taken just months ago were gone. When I called her out on it, she had excuses ready. "Rebecca, you're overthinking this. I'm just curating my feed more professionally now. Connor's family follows me, and I want to make a good impression." "Since when do you care about impressing people you barely know?" "Since I realized this relationship could change my entire future." Her voice got that defensive edge it used to have when Mom caught her lying about homework. "Connor's family has connections everywhere, publishing, law, politics. This isn't just some college boyfriend, Rebecca. This is my career, my life. What about our family? What about your actual life? This is my actual life now, and I need you to respect that." But respect apparently meant erasure. When Connor's parents came to visit campus in November, Amanda made sure she was conveniently unavailable for our usual weekly check-in call. When his sister posted photos from their girls' day shopping in Boston, Amanda was right there with them, looking perfectly at home among the designer boutiques and five-star restaurants. Meanwhile, I was still getting the bills. Amanda's meal plan, her textbooks, her dorm fees, everything that wasn't covered by her partial scholarship came through me. I'd set up automatic payments years ago when she first started at Harvard, and somehow I'd become the family ATM without anyone acknowledging what that meant. The breaking point came during Christmas planning. Every year since Amanda started college, she'd come home for at least a week during winter break. We had traditions: Christmas Eve movie marathons, elaborate cookie decorating sessions, New Year's Eve games that went until dawn. "I'm spending Christmas with Connor's family this year," she announced during one of our increasingly rare phone calls. "What?" "But we always—" "I know, and I'm sorry, but this is important. His family has this huge Christmas gala every year. Everyone who's anyone in Boston will be there. It's a networking opportunity I can't pass up." "What about New Year's?" "Same thing. They have a party at their country club." "So you're just not coming home at all?" The pause stretched so long I wondered if the call had dropped. "Rebecca, I need you to understand something. This is bigger than our little family traditions. This is about my future, my career, my entire life trajectory. Connor's family could open doors for me that I never even knew existed. And what about the doors our family opened for you? What about everything we sacrificed so you could even be at Harvard in the first place?" "I never asked you to do that." The words came out sharp, angry. "I never asked you to pay for anything. That was your choice." "My choice." Like watching your little sister struggle with tuition bills was really a choice. Like loving someone enough to help them achieve their dreams was some kind of burden I'd imposed on her. "You're right," I said quietly. "It was my choice. Just like spending Christmas with Connor's family is yours. Rebecca, don't be like this. You know I appreciate everything you've done, but I can't live in the past forever. I have to think about my future. Apparently, that future didn't include me. Christmas came and went. I spent it with Mom and Dad trying to pretend Amanda's empty chair at the dinner table didn't feel like a gaping wound. We called her on Christmas morning, a stilted video chat where she showed us the Williams family's massive drawing room with its 12-foot Christmas tree and museum-quality decorations. "It's beautiful, honey," Mom said, but I could hear the hurt in her voice. "Thank you for the sweater," Amanda said, holding up the cashmere cardigan Mom had saved up for months to buy. "It's lovely." But she was already wearing a different cashmere sweater, one that probably cost 3 times as much and came from a store I'd never heard of. After the call ended, Dad shook his head sadly. "She's changing." "People change when they go to college," Mom said, but she didn't sound convinced. "It's normal." Nothing about this felt normal. January brought a new semester and new bills. Amanda's spring tuition notice arrived in my email. $28,000 due by the end of the month. I stared at the number, thinking about Christmas dinner without her, about the photo albums she'd asked Mom to put away because they were too cluttered, about the way she'd started talking about our hometown like it was something she needed to escape from rather than the place that had loved and supported her. I paid the bill, like I always did, but something had shifted inside me. The shift became a crack when I saw the video. It was posted by one of Connor's friends from some charity auction in February. Just a casual Instagram story that happened to capture the exact moment my world imploded. The camera was panning across the elegant ballroom, showing off designer gowns and tuxedos, champagne glasses, and massive floral arrangements. Then it landed on Amanda, radiant in a silver dress that probably cost more than my car payment, standing arm in arm with Connor and his parents. "Tell us about your family, Amanda," a woman's voice said from behind the camera. It was clearly a friend of the Williams family, someone used to making polite conversation at these kinds of events. Amanda's smile never wavered. "Oh, I don't have much family to speak of, just my parents." The words hit me like a physical blow. "No siblings?" the woman pressed, sounding genuinely curious. "No," Amanda said, her voice bright and confident. "I'm an only child, always have been." The camera moved on, but I sat frozen in my apartment, staring at my phone screen long after the video had ended. 28 years of being her big sister, erased in a single sentence. 28 years of scraped knees I'd bandaged, nightmares I'd chased away, homework I'd helped with, dreams I'd supported. All of it dismissed like it had never happened. But the real gut punch came in the next part of the video when Connor's mother leaned toward Amanda with that particular smile wealthy women get when they're feeling magnanimous. "That's wonderful, darling. It's so much simpler when families are, well curated. One does worry about the complications that extended family can bring." Amanda nodded enthusiastically. "Absolutely. I've always believed in quality over quantity when it comes to relationships." I watched that video 17 times before I finally understood what I was seeing. This wasn't just Amanda trying to impress Connor's family. This was Amanda actively rewriting her history, turning me into a shameful secret that needed to be hidden away. The phone rang at 2 a.m. Amanda's name flashed on my screen, and for a split second, my heart leaped with hope. Maybe she was calling to explain. Maybe there was some misunderstanding. "Rebecca?" Her voice was slurred, probably from champagne at whatever event she'd just left. "I need to talk to you." "I saw the video, Amanda." Silence. "Which video?" But her voice had gone careful, guarded. "The one where you told Connor's family you don't have a sister." More silence. Then, "Rebecca, you don't understand the situation I'm in." "Then explain it to me." "Connor's family. They're very particular about backgrounds. They have certain expectations about the kind of people they associate with, and I don't meet those expectations. It's not personal. It's just, they value a certain kind of lifestyle, a certain level of sophistication." The word hit me like a slap. "Sophistication. You know what I mean. They move in different circles. They have different standards. So you decided I was an embarrassment. I decided to make my life easier. Her voice was getting defensive now, the same tone she'd used as a teenager when caught lying. This relationship is important to me, Rebecca. It's the most important thing that's ever happened to me. Connor could be my future husband. His family could be my family. What about your actual family? My actual family doesn't have trust funds and political connections and summer houses in Martha's Vineyard. The words exploded out of her, raw and angry. My actual family can't introduce me to publishers and senators and people who can actually help my career. Your actual family put you through Harvard, and I'm grateful for that. I really am. But I can't live my entire life paying back a debt I never asked for. There it was. The truth, finally. I wasn't her sister anymore. I was a debt, an obligation, a reminder of a life she was trying to leave behind. You're right, I said, my voice surprisingly calm. You never asked for my help, and I never asked to be treated like a dirty secret. Rebecca, please don't make this harder than it has to be. I'm not asking you to understand. I'm just asking you to respect my choices. I do respect your choices, Amanda. Just like I respect my own. What's that supposed to mean? But I'd already hung up. I sat in my dark apartment staring at the stack of Amanda's Harvard bills on my kitchen counter. Spring semester tuition, $28,000. Room and board, $12,000. Books and fees, $3,000. All due within the next month. All automatically charged to my account. For 8 years, I'd been Amanda's safety net. For 8 years, I'd sacrificed my own financial security, my own dreams, my own future to make sure she could have hers. And for what? So she could stand in a ballroom full of strangers and pretend I'd never existed? My laptop was still open on the kitchen table. I pulled up my banking app and stared at the automatic payment authorization I'd set up years ago. 1 click, and Amanda would be responsible for her own expenses. 1 click, and the girl who'd decided I wasn't sophisticated enough for her new life would learn exactly how much that sophistication was going to cost her. I closed the laptop without clicking anything, but the seed was planted. The next morning brought 3 missed calls from Amanda and a text that said simply, "We need to talk." I didn't respond. By afternoon, the missed calls had multiplied, and the texts were getting more frantic. "Rebecca, I know you're upset, but you're being unreasonable." "I didn't mean it the way it sounded." "You're blowing this way out of proportion." "Call me back. We're family." Family. Now I was family again. How convenient. But I wasn't ready to talk yet. I wasn't ready to be pulled back into the cycle of apologies and promises and gradual erosion of my self-worth. Instead, I did something I'd never done before. I started documenting everything. Bank statements showing 8 years of tuition payments, email receipts for textbooks, meal plans, dorm fees, screenshots of the automatic payment setup I'd created when Amanda first started college, records of the student loans I'd co-signed, putting my own credit on the line for her education. The numbers were staggering. $47,000 of direct payments from my own savings, $33,000 in co-signed loans that I was legally responsible for if Amanda defaulted. Over $80,000 total that I'd committed to my sister's education, money that had shaped every financial decision I'd made for nearly a decade. I'd never added it up before. I'd never let myself think about what that money could have meant for my own life. Graduate school, a house down payment, retirement savings, travel. Dreams I'd put on hold so Amanda could chase hers, and she'd thanked me by erasing me from her story. The breaking point came 3 weeks later when Amanda posted photos from Connor's family's annual charity gala. She looked stunning in a midnight blue gown that probably cost more than I made in a month, standing between Connor and his parents like she'd been born into their world. The caption read, "So grateful to be welcomed into the Williams family tradition. Some people are just meant to be part of something bigger than themselves." Bigger than themselves. Bigger than the family that had raised her, supported her, sacrificed for her. In the comments, Connor's friends gushed about how perfect she looked, how lucky Connor was, how she was clearly one of them. And Amanda responded to each comment with gracious thanks, playing the role of the perfect society girlfriend. But it was Connor's mother's comment that broke something inside me. "Welcome to the family, darling. We're so pleased Connor found someone with such impeccable background and breeding." Impeccable background. The background she'd carefully constructed by deleting me from it. I screenshotted everything. Then I opened my laptop and navigated to my bank's website. The automatic payment authorization page looked the same as it had for years. Amanda Martinez, Harvard University. Monthly maximum, $15,000. Status, active. My finger hovered over the cancel authorization button. One click, and Amanda would be on her own financially. One click, and the girl who'd decided I wasn't good enough for her new life would discover exactly how much her old life had been worth. One click, and 8 years of being taken for granted would finally have consequences. I thought about Amanda's laugh when we were kids, the way she used to fall asleep holding my hand during thunderstorms, how proud she'd looked in her cap and gown at high school graduation. I thought about the little girl who used to beg me to read her bedtime stories, who'd once told Mom that she wanted to be just like me when she grew up. Then I thought about the woman in the midnight blue gown, surrounded by people who thought I didn't exist, basking in the approval of a family that had made it clear people like me weren't welcome. I clicked the button. The screen refreshed. Authorization successfully canceled. It was done. For the first time in 8 years, Amanda Martinez was financially independent, just like she'd wanted to be emotionally independent. I closed the laptop and went to bed, but sleep didn't come. I lay awake wondering if I'd just made the biggest mistake of my life, or if I'd finally stopped making the same mistake over and over again. By morning, I had my answer. The phone started ringing at 6 a.m. Amanda's name flashed on the screen over and over, accompanied by increasingly frantic text messages. "Rebecca, the university called. They said my tuition payment was declined. This has to be a mistake. Can you call the bank? Rebecca, answer your phone. I don't know what's happening, but I need you to fix this right now. My tuition is due today. If it doesn't go through, I could be dropped from my classes. Rebecca, please, I'm sorry about what I said. I didn't mean it. Please don't do this to me. Don't do this to me." Not, "I'm sorry I hurt you," or "I want to make this right." Just, "Don't do this to me," like I was the one who had betrayed someone I loved. I didn't answer the phone. Instead, I got dressed, made coffee, and went to work like it was any other day. But every few minutes, my phone would buzz with another message, each one more desperate than the last. By lunch, the messages had shifted from desperate to angry. "I can't believe you're being this petty. You're going to ruin my entire future over one stupid comment. This is my education, Rebecca. My career. My life. How can you be so selfish?" Selfish. I was selfish for finally stopping the flow of money that had been draining my own future for 8 years. I was selfish for refusing to continue funding the education of someone who'd publicly denied my existence. The final message came at 3 p.m. "Fine, I'll figure this out without you. Don't expect me to forgive you for this. Don't expect her to forgive me." The irony was so sharp it almost made me laugh. That evening, I came home to find my parents' car in my driveway. They were sitting on my front steps, both of them looking older than I'd ever seen them. "Sweetheart," Mom said as I approached, her voice gentle but strained. "We need to talk." I unlocked my front door and let them in, my stomach churning with dread. "Amanda called us," Dad said once we were all seated in my living room. "She's in a panic about her tuition payment." "She told us what happened," Mom added, her hands twisted together in her lap. "About the video, about what she said." I waited for them to take Amanda's side, to tell me I was being unreasonable, to ask me to fix this for the good of the family. Instead, Dad said quietly, "She was wrong to say what she said." "Very wrong," Mom agreed. "We raised her better than that." "But Rebecca," Dad continued, "she's your sister, and she's so close to graduating. If she can't pay her tuition, she could lose everything," Mom finished. "All these years of work, all these sacrifices, yours and ours, could be for nothing." There it was, the guilt, served up with a side of family obligation and garnished with the weight of shared sacrifice. She made her choice. I said finally. She chose Connor's family over ours. She chose to pretend I don't exist. I'm just giving her what she wanted. You don't mean that, Mom said, but I did mean it. For the first time in years, I meant exactly what I said. She told a room full of strangers that she doesn't have a sister, I continued, my voice gaining strength. She looked into a camera and erased 28 years of my love, my support, my sacrifice. She didn't just hurt my feelings, Mom. She killed something inside me. Dad's face crumpled. Oh, sweetheart. I've been funding her dream life for 8 years, I said, and the first chance she got to choose between that dream and me, she chose the dream. So now she can figure out how to pay for it herself. My parents left an hour later, both of them looking shell-shocked. They loved Amanda, but they loved me too, and they were finally starting to understand that sometimes those two loves could be in direct conflict. That night, I did something I hadn't done in months. I looked at my own bank account with eyes unclouded by automatic deductions and family obligations. Without Amanda's expenses, my financial picture looked completely different. For the first time since college, I had room to breathe, room to save, room to dream about my own future instead of constantly sacrificing it for someone else's. I opened a new savings account and set up an automatic transfer for the exact amount I'd been spending on Amanda's education, $2,800 per month, earmarked for my own dreams this time. Graduate school maybe, or a house, or that trip to Europe I'd been planning for 10 years but could never afford. For the first time in longer than I could remember, my future felt like it belonged to me. The first 3 days after cutting off Amanda's tuition were the darkest of my life. I called in sick to work and barely left my apartment, existing on cereal and the growing certainty that I'd just destroyed my family forever. Every time my phone buzzed with another frantic message from Amanda or a concerned call from my parents, the weight in my chest got heavier. But on the 4th day, something shifted. I was lying in bed at 2 p.m., still in yesterday's clothes, when my phone rang. Not Amanda this time, my college friend Sarah, calling from Portland. "Okay, I've been stalking your social media and you've gone completely dark," she said without preamble. "What's going on?" I found myself telling her everything. The video, the denial, 8 years of financial support, the canceled payments. All of it poured out in a stream of consciousness confession that left me breathless. Sarah was quiet for a long moment after I finished. Then, "Holy shit, Rebecca. Holy shit. I know I'm a terrible person. I'm destroying my sister's life over—" "Stop." Sarah's voice was sharp. "Just stop right there. You're not destroying anything. You've been funding her Harvard education for 8 years, and she thanked you by pretending you don't exist? But, no buts. Rebecca, do you hear yourself? You just told me you've spent over $80,000 on someone who publicly denied your existence. That's not being a good sister. That's being an ATM with feelings." The words hit me like cold water. An ATM with feelings. "She's been using you," Sarah continued, her voice getting angrier. "And the worst part is she's convinced you that it's normal, that you owe her this support, but you don't owe anyone the right to erase you from their life story." After we hung up, I did something I'd never done before. I Googled family financial abuse. The results were eye-opening. Article after article about adult children who exploited their families financially while offering nothing in return. Stories of siblings who took until their relatives were drained dry, always with promises of future gratitude that never materialized. One article particularly stuck with me. "When Love Becomes Enabling: How to Recognize Financial Manipulation in Families." The author described a pattern I knew all too well. The gradual normalization of one-sided financial support, the guilt tactics used to maintain the flow of money, the way the taker slowly distances themselves from the giver while still expecting continued support. The key indicator, the article read, is reciprocity. In healthy family relationships, support flows both ways. The person receiving help shows genuine gratitude, maintains close emotional bonds, and offers non-financial support in return. In manipulative relationships, the taker begins to view the support as an entitlement while simultaneously distancing themselves from the giver. I read that paragraph 3 times. 8 years of entitlement, while Amanda had slowly but surely pushed me out of her life. 8 years of distance disguised as growth, sophistication, moving up in the world. That evening, I made an appointment with Dr. Chen, a therapist whose name I'd found through my insurance website. I'd never been to therapy before. My family had always been the handle-it-yourself type. But something about Sarah's words had shaken loose the idea that I could figure this out alone. Dr. Chen's office was nothing like I'd expected. Comfortable chairs, soft lighting, a shelf full of books that looked actually read rather than decorative. She was younger than I'd anticipated, maybe early 40s, with kind eyes and an immediate warmth that made me feel less like a failure for needing professional help. "Tell me what brought you here today," she said, and I found myself going through the story again. But this time, something was different. This time, I heard myself clearly. "She said I don't have a sister," I repeated, and my voice broke on the words. Dr. Chen leaned forward slightly. "How did that make you feel?" "Like I don't exist. Like 28 years of loving her meant nothing." "And before this incident, how would you describe your relationship with Amanda?" I started to give the standard family answer. We were close, she was busy with school, I was proud of her success, but Dr. Chen's patient silence invited honesty. I was her safety net, I said finally. Financially, emotionally. When she had problems, she called me. When she needed money, she called me. When she wanted to celebrate, she called Connor. When did that pattern start? I thought about it. Probably when she started at Harvard. Maybe before. I was always the responsible one, the one who helped solve problems. She was the baby, the one who needed protection. And what did you get in return? The question caught me off guard. What do you mean? In this relationship, what were your needs? How did Amanda support you? I opened my mouth to answer, then closed it, opened it again. Nothing came out. Take your time, Dr. Chen said gently. I don't think she knew I had needs, I said finally. I was just there, available, reliable. I don't think it ever occurred to either of us that I might need something from her. We talked for an hour, and by the end, I had homework. Document every interaction I'd had with Amanda over the past year, not just the big moments, but the daily exchanges. Who initiated contact? What did we talk about? How did I feel afterward? The exercise was brutal. Looking back through text messages and call logs, I saw a pattern so clear I couldn't believe I'd missed it. Amanda contacted me when she needed something, advice about a paper, help with a problem, money for an emergency expense. I contacted her to check in, to share good news, to maintain our relationship. In the past 6 months, Amanda had initiated exactly 3 conversations that weren't requests for help. 3. And all of those had been brief responses to something I'd shared, not genuine attempts to connect. Meanwhile, I'd sent dozens of messages, photos of things that reminded me of her, articles I thought she'd find interesting, updates about family and friends, all met with brief responses or, increasingly often, no response at all. I'd been in a one-sided relationship for years without realizing it. Armed with this new awareness, I made a decision that would have been unthinkable a week earlier. I was going to protect myself. The first step was practical. I called the bank and requested written confirmation that Amanda's automatic payments had been canceled. Then I contacted the student loan company and began the process of removing myself as a co-signer. It would take time and potentially legal action, but I wasn't going to remain financially liable for someone who considered me a stranger. The second step was emotional. I blocked Amanda on all social media platforms. It sounds petty written out like that, but Dr. Chen had helped me understand that I was essentially stalking my own pain. Every time I saw Amanda's posts about her glamorous new life, every photo with Connor's family, every caption about being grateful for new opportunities, I was voluntarily subjecting myself to evidence of my own erasure. You're not required to witness your own replacement, Dr. Chen had said. Protecting your emotional well-being isn't cruelty, it's basic self-care. The third step was the hardest. I stopped answering Amanda's calls. For 2 weeks after the tuition payment failed, Amanda had been calling daily. The messages started desperate and evolved through angry, manipulative, and back to desperate, but they all had the same basic theme. Fix this for me. Not, I'm sorry for hurting you. Not, I want to rebuild our relationship. Just, fix this. On a Tuesday morning in March, I was having coffee when my phone rang. Amanda again. This time, instead of letting it go to voicemail, I answered. Rebecca, thank God, I've been trying to reach you for weeks. I know. Look, I figured out the tuition situation. I got a job at the campus bookstore, and I applied for additional financial aid. It's going to be tight, but I think I can make it work. She sounded proud of herself, like she'd accomplished something remarkable instead of what most college students did as a matter of course. That's good, Amanda. I'm glad you found a solution. But I wanted to talk to you about the loans, the ones you co-signed. The loan company sent me some paperwork about you trying to remove yourself as a guarantor. Yes? Rebecca, you can't do that. If you're not on the loans anymore, my interest rate will skyrocket. I might not be able to afford the payments after graduation. There it was. Not concern about our relationship, not acknowledgement of the pain she'd caused, just worry about her loan terms. Amanda, I said carefully, do you remember what you told Connor's family about having a sister? Silence. Do you remember telling a room full of people that I don't exist? Rebecca, I explained that. The situation was complicated. I was trying to... You were trying to erase me from your life story so you could fit in with people you barely know. That's not... Look, maybe I handled it wrong, but you're blowing this completely out of proportion. It was one stupid comment at one party. One stupid comment. 8 years of financial support, 28 years of sisterhood reduced to one stupid comment. If it was so stupid and meaningless, I said, why did you make it? Another long silence. I don't know, she said finally. It just, in that moment it seemed easier. Easier. It was easier to delete me than to explain me. I understand, I said, and I meant it. Just like it's easier for me to remove myself from your financial obligations than to keep supporting someone who finds my existence inconvenient. Rebecca, please don't do this. I know I messed up, but I can't handle losing the loans and losing you. You already lost me, Amanda. You lost me the moment you decided I was too embarrassing to acknowledge. I never said you were embarrassing. You didn't have to say it. You said it when you deleted our childhood photos from Instagram. You said it when you stopped mentioning me to Connor. You said it when you told his family I don't exist. My voice was getting stronger, clearer. You spent months gradually erasing me from your life, and now you're upset that I'm finally letting you complete the process. That's not what I wanted. Then what did you want, Amanda? Because from where I'm sitting, you wanted all the benefits of having a sister, the financial support, the emergency contact, the safety net, without any of the social costs. You wanted me to be invisible and available. The silence stretched so long I thought she'd hung up. Maybe that's fair, she said finally, her voice small. Maybe? Okay, it's fair. It's completely fair, and I'm sorry. I'm so sorry, Rebecca. I know I hurt you. I know I was selfish and awful, and I took you for granted. It was the first real apology I'd heard from her in months, but it was also too late. I appreciate the apology, I said, but apologizing for the behavior and changing the behavior are two different things. I can change. I want to change. I want us to be sisters again. We were never sisters, Amanda. I was your ATM and you were my project. That's not sisterhood. That's dysfunction. After I hung up, I sat in my kitchen for a long time, staring at my coffee and thinking about the conversation. Part of me felt vindicated. She'd finally admitted what she'd done, but part of me felt hollow, like I'd just performed surgery on myself without anesthesia. Dr. Chen helped me understand that feeling during our next session. Grief isn't just for death, she explained. You're grieving the relationship you thought you had with Amanda and the person you thought she was. That's a real loss, and it's okay to mourn it. But I'm also angry, I said. How can I be sad and angry at the same time? Because love and disappointment aren't mutually exclusive. You can love someone and still recognize that they've hurt you badly enough that continuing the relationship isn't healthy. Over the following weeks, I began to rebuild my life without Amanda in it. It was strange at first. For 8 years, so many of my decisions had been filtered through the question of how they would affect her. Where to live, close enough to help if needed. What to spend money on, always saving for her next emergency. How to plan my time, available for her calls and crises. Without those constraints, I felt simultaneously free and unmoored. I used some of the money I'd been spending on Amanda's education to take a weekend trip to Nashville, something I'd been wanting to do for years but could never afford. I signed up for a creative writing class at the community college. I bought myself a good laptop and started working on the novel I'd been planning to write someday for the past decade. Most importantly, I started dating. Marcus was a software engineer I met through a hiking group I'd joined. He was kind, funny, and refreshingly uncomplicated. When I told him about my situation with Amanda, he listened without judgment and then said something that stuck with me. "Sounds like you finally fired a really demanding client." It was such a different way of looking at the situation, not as a family tragedy, but as a business decision. Amanda had been a client who demanded more and more while offering less and less in return. Eventually, the relationship had become so one-sided that the only rational response was to terminate the contract. "Do you miss her?" Marcus asked during one of our early dates. "I miss who I thought she was," I said. "But I don't miss the stress, the constant worry about money, the feeling like I was never doing enough." "Sounds like you're better off." I was better off. For the first time in years, my bank account was growing instead of shrinking. My stress levels had plummeted. I slept better, ate better, felt more optimistic about my future. But the real test came 6 months later when my parents called with news. "Amanda's graduating next week," Mom said carefully. "She invited us to the ceremony." My stomach clenched. "That's nice." "She asked about you, whether you'd be coming." Of course she had. After months of no contact, she wanted me at her graduation, the graduation I'd paid for but wouldn't be credited for. "What did you tell her?" "That we'd ask you," Dad said. "But sweetheart, we want you to know that whatever you decide, we support you." It had taken them months to get to that point. Initially, my parents had pushed hard for reconciliation, unable to understand how their 2 daughters had gone from close to estranged seemingly overnight. It wasn't until I showed them the bank statements, 8 years of payments documented in black and white, that they began to grasp the magnitude of what had been happening. "We had no idea," Mom had said, staring at the numbers. "We knew you helped, but this is a second mortgage," Dad had added quietly. "You took out a second mortgage on your future for her education." They'd stopped pushing for reconciliation after that, though I knew they held out hope that Amanda and I would eventually work things out. "I'm not going to the graduation," I told them. "Are you sure?" Mom asked. "It might be a chance to—" "To what? To watch her celebrate an achievement I funded while she continues to pretend I don't exist? To smile and play nice while she introduces Connor's family to her real family?" "She might have changed," Dad offered hopefully. "Maybe she has," I said, "but I have too." The graduation came and went without me. According to my parents, Amanda looked beautiful, gave a lovely speech, and was photographed extensively with Connor and his family. There were no photos of her with our parents, at least none that made it to social media. Some things, apparently, hadn't changed, but other things had. A week after graduation, I got a text from an unknown number. "This is Amanda. I have a new phone. Can we talk?" I stared at the message for a long time before responding. "I'm not interested in talking right now. Please, just 5 minutes. I have something important to tell you." Against my better judgment, I called the number. "Rebecca, thank you for calling. I wasn't sure you would." "You have 5 minutes." "Okay, first, I wanted you to know that Connor and I broke up." I felt a flicker of surprise, but kept my voice neutral. "I'm sorry to hear that." "You're not, and that's okay. You were right about him, about his family, about all of it." "What happened?" "His family happened. They never really accepted me, no matter how hard I tried to fit in. And Connor, he was embarrassed by me the same way I was embarrassed by you." The parallel was so obvious, I wondered how she'd missed it before. He broke up with me 2 weeks before graduation, she continued. Said his parents thought we were moving too fast, that he needed to focus on his career. But really, they just didn't think I was good enough for their precious son. I'm sorry, I said, and meant it. Being rejected for not being good enough was painful, no matter who did it. The thing is, Amanda continued, when it happened, the first person I wanted to call was you. Not to ask for help, just to talk to my sister. But I realized I'd destroyed that relationship for someone who never really wanted me anyway. Amanda. No, let me finish. I know I hurt you. I know I was selfish and awful, and I took you for granted. I spent so much time trying to become someone Connor's family would accept that I forgot who I actually was. And part of who I was, the best part, was your little sister. It was the most self-aware thing I'd ever heard her say. I don't expect you to forgive me, she continued. I know I probably destroyed something that can't be fixed. But I wanted you to know that I understand now. I understand what I lost and what I threw away and why you had to protect yourself from me. Thank you, I said quietly. That means a lot to hear. I also wanted you to know that I'm paying you back, every penny. I got a job at a publishing house in Boston, not through Connor's connections, just through my own qualifications, and I've set up a payment plan. It's going to take me years, but I'm going to pay you back everything you spent on my education. I was too surprised to speak. You don't have to accept the money, she said quickly. I know it doesn't fix what I did to you, but I need to do it. For me. I need to take responsibility for what my education actually cost, instead of just pretending it was free. Amanda, I know this doesn't change anything between us. I know you're probably happier without me in your life, and you have every right to be. But I wanted you to know that you were right, about everything, and I'm sorry it took me losing everything to figure that out. After we hung up, I sat in my car for 20 minutes, crying harder than I had since the whole mess started. Not tears of sadness exactly, but tears of relief. Relief that the sister I'd loved wasn't completely gone, just buried under years of entitlement and poor choices. I didn't call her back that day, or the next week, or the next month. But I kept the number. 3 months later, the first payment arrived, $500, with a note that simply said, Payment 1 of $160. Thank you for everything. I deposited the check, but I also did something else. I wrote her a letter. Amanda, it began. Thank you for the payment and for your apology. Both mean more than you know. I'm not ready to have a relationship yet, but I want you to know that I'm proud of you for taking responsibility and for building a life based on your own achievements rather than someone else's expectations. Maybe someday we can figure out how to be sisters again. But for now, I'm content knowing that you're finally learning to be your own person. Love, Rebecca. I didn't hear back from her immediately, but the payments kept coming. Every month, like clockwork, along with brief updates about her job, her apartment, her life as an independent adult. A year later, she sent a longer letter. I know I have no right to ask this, but would you be willing to have coffee sometime? I miss my sister, and I think I'm finally ready to be the sister you deserved all along. I read the letter 3 times before making a decision. Dear Amanda, I wrote back. Yes, let's have coffee, but I need you to understand that this isn't about going back to how things were. That relationship was broken. This is about building something new, something based on mutual respect instead of financial obligation. If you're ready for that kind of relationship, equal, reciprocal, honest, then I'm willing to try. Love, Rebecca. The coffee date was awkward at first. We were strangers who shared a history, trying to figure out if we could also share a future. But there was something different about Amanda, a humility, a genuine interest in my life that had been missing for years. Tell me about your novel, she said, and actually listened when I did. Tell me about your job, I said, and she lit up talking about her work in ways she'd never lit up talking about Connor or his family. We didn't hug when we said goodbye, but we made plans to meet again in 2 weeks. It took a year of careful, tentative rebuilding before I could say we were truly sisters again. A different kind of sisters than we'd been before. More equal, more honest, more aware of each other's boundaries. Amanda paid me back every penny she owed, not because I demanded it, but because she needed to prove to herself that she could take responsibility for her choices. I spent so many years thinking that being loved meant being taken care of, she told me during one of our monthly dinners. I never realized that being loved also means taking care of the people who love you. She was still learning that lesson, but she was learning it, and watching her grow into the kind of person who deserved to be loved, really loved, not just enabled, was its own kind of reward. The morning I got her wedding invitation 2 years later, I called her immediately. "You're getting married? To who? When? Why didn't you tell me sooner?" Her laughter was pure joy. "His name is David. He's a teacher. We met at a bookstore, and I wanted to tell you in person next week, but I couldn't wait to send the invitation." "And he's not a trust fund baby?" "God, no. He grew up in Queens. His parents are a nurse and a mechanic, and he thinks my family is wonderful." "Even me?" "Especially you. He says anyone who raised me to be accountable for my mistakes must be pretty amazing." The wedding was small, intimate, and completely different from the society extravaganza Amanda had once planned with Connor. David's family was warm and welcoming, treating our parents like treasured in-laws and me like the sister-in-law they were excited to gain. During her speech, Amanda looked directly at me. "I want to thank my sister Rebecca, who loved me enough to let me fall when I needed to learn how to stand up. That's not easy love, but it's real love, and it saved my life." I cried through the entire speech. Later that night, as we cleaned up after the reception, Amanda found me in the kitchen washing dishes. "You know what the best part of today was?" she said, drying a wine glass. "What?" "Introducing David's family to my sister. Not hiding you, not being ashamed of where I come from, just being proud of the family that made me who I am." "Even the messy parts?" "Especially the messy parts. The messy parts are what taught me how to be better." We worked in comfortable silence for a while, sisters again in the truest sense. Not because we shared DNA, not because we were obligated to love each other, but because we'd chosen to rebuild something broken into something stronger. "Rebecca," Amanda said as we finished the last of the dishes. "Yeah?" "Thank you for cutting me off. I know that sounds crazy, but thank you. I needed to learn who I was without a safety net, and you gave me that gift even though it hurt you to do it." "You're welcome," I said, and meant it. The greatest revenge I'd learned wasn't destruction. It was transformation, hers and mine. She'd become someone worthy of love, and I'd become someone who knew her own worth. Sometimes the best way to save someone you love is to stop saving them. Sometimes the most loving thing you can do is let them fall. And sometimes, if you're very lucky, they learn to fly.